You mentioned the god Yao or Yahu or Yahoo. Talk to us a little bit about how, and you're talking about what we know in Hebrew as Yud He Vav He, the Tetragrammaton. And actually, before we started, guys, Professor Portman, I was speaking the name the way I normally speak it, and he asked me not to speak that. So out of deference to him, I'm not going to. But the name Yud He Vav He, how is that written at Elephantine? Let's start with that.
Well, it was written Yud He Vav.
And then sometimes Yud He He, right?
Now, in the earlier documents, and there was those that are the beginning of the 5th century, we have the spelling Yud He He.
Wow. Okay.
And in the Ostrika, we have the term Yahu Tzvaot, which is translated the Lord of Hosts, meaning the military hosts. And there the name is written Yud He He. So just like the name Pharaoh, we pronounce it O at the end, but it's spelled with a Hey.
Okay.
And the place name Shiloh, we pronounce it O at the end, but it's written with a Hey. So the final Hey could be a vowel letter that would signify O.
Okay.
And so they would write Yud He He, and then they just changed it and wrote Yud He Vav.
So your suggestion is they pronounced it something like Yahoo.
Right.
Okay.
Yahoo.
Okay. Very interesting. Now, of course, we don't have vowels, so we don't actually know for sure how they pronounced it in these Elephantine documents, right?
Right.
What we do, what's really interesting, and maybe you want to talk about this a little bit, is that later we have in, for example, 4Q120 in the Dead Sea Scrolls, we have a Greek document with a Greek text of the book of Leviticus, where the name is written Yota Alpha Omega, which is pronounced Ya'o. And some people have suggested that that is a continuation of this Aramaic form, Yud He He, Yud He Vav. What do you have any thoughts on that?
No, that is. In my book, I mentioned that in Greek texts, we do have that spelling, I-A-O. Yahoo.
So if you take that Greek form from 4Q120 in the Dead Sea Scrolls and you combine it with what we find in Elephantine, there's an Aramaic form of God's name, which is Yahoo, that's really interesting, guys. So that what's really interesting to me is that one of the clear pieces of information that I can take away from this, from the Aramaic and Greek evidence together, is there's an O in his name. That's interesting to me. So you mentioned how in the actual Ostrika, they mention Yahoo. Does that mean they spoke that name in Elephantine? The Jews of Elephantine, they spoke that name 500 years ago? Because later, of course, we have this, and even, you kind of alluded to it before we started, of the modern practice of not pronouncing the name. So is your understanding that at Elephantine, they freely said Yahoo?
Yes.
Okay.